Talk about Donald Trump is hurting the country. Glenn Beck is the founder of The Blaze, and he joins me now in his first on-camera interview since the election, and I appreciate that. Welcome, Glenn. You were not a supporter of Donald Trump.
Thank you.
And you took a whole lot of heat for your
all.
position during the campaign, but today, here's what you wrote in the New York Times. You said, Mr. Obama and Hillary Clinton have offered wise counsel. Give Mr. Trump a chance. The country needs him to succeed and represent all Americans. So, is this your olive branch to Donald Trump?
It is. We have two obligations under the Constitution. One of them is to fight hard and speak the truth when it comes to a primary. And then when the president is the president, we need to do our best to give him a shot. Now, that doesn't mean that if he starts violating principles, and I love what Selena said. I have taken this to heart, and I think it's so true, that his supporters took him seriously, but not literally. I take him literally. And the point, Don, that I'm trying to make is, I don't know how Donald Trump is going to end up as a president, and I do take him literally, and by doing that, he scares me. However, what I do know is that many of my liberal, very liberal friends have written me this week and said, is this the way you felt in 2008? To some degree, yes. You can't compare Donald Trump to Barack Obama in many ways, because Barack Obama was a man that was at least in control of himself and his words during the campaign. So I understand the fear, and what I want to say to people is, don't make the same mistakes that I made. We are much more weak than we were in 2008, and I'm hearing people start to say things that will drive a wedge between us, just like I was driving a wedge. At the time, unknowingly, it was not my intent, but it did. And it happened because I was afraid of what Barack Obama was going to do, and we survived. And we will survive Donald Trump. We have to stick together. And there might be some things, if he goes awry, that is very frightening, and we need to be together.
We're going to talk a little bit more about the differences between now and 2008, and you and I will talk about that later, and about what you said about the current president, and then where you are now. But my question is, a lot of people are freaking out. They don't even know what the man is going to do, and I think rightfully so, to a degree, considering his rhetoric on the campaign trail and some of the policies that he espoused. And so I think people can be on the freak out level a little bit.
And I will say your conversation earlier about Steve Bannon also should be concerning. Steve Bannon is not a name you just throw in there with Reince Priebus. Steve Bannon is a man who took a news organization and said, we are the platform for the alt-right. That's a different category. So I truly understand people's concerns.
Yeah. I want you to listen to what we had to say about Donald Trump. This was back in January. This is a conversation we had. Are you saying secretly he's a Democrat?
The people who... No, he's a progressive. There's a difference even between a Democrat and a progressive. He's a deep, die-hard progressive.
So is that the common ground? Do you believe that he's a deep dive? You think he's a progressive?
Oh, I think policy-wise, but that's not what concerns me about Donald Trump. Policy-wise, I do believe he's a progressive. He is a guy who has said, and you can't take him at his word because I don't know what he's going to do, but he has said that he wants single-payer universal health care. That's much more progressive than Barack Obama. He wants a $1 trillion stimulus package. That is Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton combined. So he's going down the path, at least what he has said in the past, he's going down the path of progressivism. But my concern on Donald Trump has less to do with policies and more to do with principles.
During the campaign, you shared this prediction about a Trump presidency.
Believe me, if he gets in, you're looking at I think you're looking at a South American dictatorship if we would go into war, civil unrest, and economic instability. I think he's so unconnected to reality and disconnected to clear thinking on global issues that I think you could see us going into a horrible, horrible situation.
Do you still believe that, Glenn?
Don, I have to tell you, for a man to speak his mind like I do and try to tell people, to warn people, not to make predictions, but to warn people of how history can play out, always seems to get me into trouble. I do believe that surrounding himself with people like Steve Bannon and the things that he has done in the past, if they're for show and we shouldn't take him seriously, well, then we've got another set of problems, but they're not as bad as the problems that if we're to take him literally. I do believe that it doesn't have to end that way, but the reason why I'm talking to you tonight is that's why we need each other. We're not so different. Don, you and I have gotten along, and there's, I'm sure, a ton of things that we disagree with, but you're a decent human being and you listen to people. We need to start listening to people. It's the point I made in the New York Times editorial about Black Lives Matter. I need to shut up and listen to people I think completely disagree with me and truly understand them. Others need to listen to the center of the country and really listen. You can say that there are Muslim terrorists, but you also have to say that not all Muslims are terrorists. The same thing with Donald Trump supporters. Yeah. There are bigots and racists, but that's not all Donald Trump supporters. Okay. There's a few.
All right. Glenn,
and we have to know the difference.
Stand by. We'll continue our conversation right on the other side of this break. Glenn Beck is calling for the country to give Donald Trump a chance, the same message that he had about Barack Obama back in 2008. He's back with me now, and by the way, if you're wondering, he's at a Boy Scout camporee with his son, and that's why you see that he's gracious enough to join us here this evening. So, Glenn, let's talk about that, because you brought up the current president in the last segment. Back in 2008, you had this advice for people on both sides of the aisle about the election of Barack Obama. You said, let's give the man the respect that the office deserves. Let's be better people than they were to George W. Bush, be better people than the left was to us. Let's treat them the way we would want them to treat us. It is a strong message. Did you follow your own advice, you think?
No. But it was a different time. You know, when I was on Megyn Kelly about 3 years ago, I said if I could go back in time and I had the same information I had at the time, what would I do differently? And I couldn't. I've racked my brain for 3 years. What could I have done differently with the same information? And it dawned on me about a month ago. Wait a minute. After this election, I have new information, but I'm in the same position, no matter who wins. And I thought Hillary was going to win. So I can do things differently this time. I believe this may have started, I don't even know, with Clinton, but then we went into George Bush, we demonized each other, then we went into Barack Obama, and we just switched places and demonized each other. It's getting worse. And in 2020, if we don't change this, I don't know how this works out, but we're not listening to each other. We're not even, we go to a grocery store now, Don, and you know this, we don't even buy the same products anymore. We're becoming balkanized. And if we don't sit down and talk to each other and really listen, we can disagree on policies, but principles we have to find again. And it's imperative. I'm watching the news this week, and I'm seeing people say, I saw 3 people say, Donald Trump is a Nazi, Donald Trump is a Nazi, Donald Trump is a Nazi. I will tell you, I felt like I was watching me, and I was like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, but you know what?
Because the other side will stop listening And I know, because you stopped listening.
Yeah, but also I would tell you, sometimes when you use the words fascism, and I would say, Glenn, that's a little harsh, but I think we should be able to talk to each other like that, and as I've said many times to you, without castigating each other, because we're all not going to agree. And you wrote a great article that says, you said, post-election reflection, a dysfunctional family is still a family. And so even though, people think, that I live in a bubble in New York City, which I don't. I do live in New York City, but I definitely don't live in a bubble. I'm from a red state, and I visit red states all the time, and I have people of all different political persuasions. But we're still a family, and we can disagree with each other without hating each other. And I don't know exactly how we do that.
But I don't think, Don, that we have the media that is self-aware enough, and each of us that are self-aware enough to be able to have that dialogue yet in the safety tree. We have to be able to have a few people that are modeling this kind of discussion, so you can see, all right, they can get along and they can disagree, and that they're not shouting at each other and they walk away friends. We don't have that right now. If we're friends, I get this all the time. Why did you talk to the editorial board of the New York Times? Why would you sit with those guys? Have you sold out?
I get it.
Good God. No,
Yeah.
I sat down. We have to be able to do that first.
Yeah. I get it. And people would ask me, why would you want to interview Donald Trump? Or why would you want to sit down with a police officer in Ferguson? It's like, why wouldn't I? I'm a journalist. Why wouldn't I want to do that? I don't understand that. There's so much polarization that goes on. And I think knowledge is power. And just getting to sit down to talk to someone, to hear their views, can start a conversation, and really an understanding. Instead of being judgmental about someone, be curious. And that can change mindset. Doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with the other person.
Honest questioning is required.
Yeah.
Not gotcha questions, not trying to come into it. I did an interview with NPR a couple of weeks ago, and the host actually said to me, so you're just doing all this for money and it's all entertainment for you, and really nothing has changed, has it? Quote, and by the way, I consider that a rhetorical question. What kind of journalist does that? I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
you are judge and jury before I even speak.
Yeah.
You're trying to just shut me down.
Yeah.
And that's fine if that's what you choose to do. But if I can't believe the best of you, Don, if you say, please give me another chance, I've learned, and you can't do that, or I won't do that for you, then we're wasting our time.
Well, let's continue to talk.
We have to find those people who are honestly questioning.
Let's continue to talk, and let's continue to try to help this conversation in America, and help facilitate conversations all over America, even if people may not be so open to it in the beginning. I think this is an opportunity to do that.
Okay.
Thank you. Enjoy your Boy Scout camporee, and say hello to your kids.
God bless.
All right.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back.